Thank you for turning to 10, your news leader. 10 News Conference with Gene Valicenti continues right now.
Issues did not cloud the work that was done by this body. I'm immensely proud to be the titular head of the Rhode Island Senate.
That's when he first came back. State Senate President Dominick Ruggerio, the longest-serving state legislator, has died after a lengthy battle with cancer at the age of 76, having held office for more than 40 years. Ruggerio had been off and on absent from the floor and went back in the hospital just a week ago. He started on the House side, then moved to the Senate, where he eventually succeeded then Senate President Teresa Paiva-Weed in 2017. Here's a look back at that from our old friend, the late Bill Rapley, reporting.
So help me God. So help me God.
Today was all entirely ceremonial. Any negotiations or competition had been dealt with in the last few days, as Teresa Paiva-Weed's announcement she's leaving the Senate for a new job took most of the senators by surprise. So the Democrats arranged a caucus that almost all of them attended. Only 2 were absent or failed to send a proxy vote. And the vote for Ruggerio was unanimous among the 31 who cast votes. He was endorsed by his predecessor.
He is always direct, and he is always forthright. Donnie is also a strong supporter of women in our leadership team.
Ruggerio is the longest-serving senator up here for the last 32 years. He's been a longtime official with the Labor's Union, a position he says he might resign from because of the added duties of president. He's been majority leader since 2011.
Bill Rapley reporting. Well, he knew how to work the room and knew how to wield that gavel and how to hold on to power. Now, we're going to see some new video and some old video, and the contrast is stark. Cancer really took its toll on him.
Yeah, it had been a rough year for Dominick Ruggerio after announcing last year that he had been diagnosed with cancer. Then he had some other health complications after that. And then, as you may recall, he ran for re-election for his district seat. He won it. But then there was some other Democrats, his former number 2, Ryan Pearson, who challenged him for the leadership, but Ruggerio beat that back. But then this year it was more health problems. He was absent from the Senate floor more than he was there, went into the hospital with pneumonia in February, spent a couple weeks in rehab, was back just briefly, and then was back in the hospital last week before he passed on Monday.
Well, you could be said he left on his own terms. He was not forced out. He held on to that power despite a failed coup from his former number 2. This is a guy who was close to him. He tried to take him out. He's sort of been dispatched to the hinterlands, although Pearson wants to make a comeback. He's in the running now to succeed Ruggerio. He's going to have to get tough. It's going to be a heavy lift to get past Val Lawson, though.
Yeah, and that is what's coming next. The funeral for Dominick Ruggerio is on Monday, so there's kind of, people want to be respectful, but this is all playing out behind the scenes this past week, where you have the number 2, the Senate Majority Leader Valerie Lawson, who is, is the presumed next in line. You're the number 2. That's what Ruggerio was. And on Thursday afternoon, the Senate office put out a press release saying Val Lawson and Senator Frank Chacon, another longtime senator, were going to team up for the 1 and 2. But Pearson, the press release didn't mention Ryan Pearson, but he's running too. He had 8 other supporters back in the fall, so we'll see if he could pull from what appears to be the official ticket with the stamp of approval.
Well, timing is everything. He might court the progressives up there. You never know. Put a coalition
together. And that's who we got last time.
Right, but Val Lawson appears to be the odds-on favorite, and Chacon maybe cut a deal with her. He'll be her number 2. This happened Monday, and you had some reporting Monday on the actual passing of the state Senate president.
Yeah, and of course, and the reaction came from Val Lawson and Senator David Chacon, and we got some other reaction too. Again, let's show you what the reaction was on Monday, just hours after Dominick Ruggerio died. The Senate in mourning, though Dominick Ruggerio's colleagues say his impact went well beyond.
He touched the lives of so many Rhode Islanders. He shared a passion for so many things, which included improving the lives of working people, making our state a better place to live and to work.
A strong, steady, and empathetic leader, and a man who dedicated his life to public service.
He was an institution. It's the end of an era.
Ruggerio's counterpart from across the State House rotunda, House Speaker Joe Shekarchi.
It was wonderful to work with him. We had a great working relationship. We didn't agree on every bill all the time, but it was a consummate gentleman. He was professional about it, and he was just a great person. People don't realize he also had a great sense of humor. I'm going to miss his sense of humor.
Ruggerio long worked for a labor union. Then, as Senate president, he pushed health care bills, led the way in legalizing sports betting in Rhode Island, and clearing former 195 highway land for development.
He was always for projects that was creating jobs, and jobs was critical to him.
Former Providence Mayor Joe Paolino worked with Ruggerio in the lieutenant governor's office back in the 1970s.
He was a very good guy. A lot of common sense, a regular guy, but he had the right personality to do it. And he always found common ground when there were people disagreeing on one side or the other. He always knew how to bring people together, and I think that was the great strength that he had as the president of the Rhode Island Senate.
Well, like any politician, he's going to have supporters and detractors. I know the gun rights crowd isn't particularly happy with him, and he had a couple of personal bumps in the road.
Yeah, a couple of arrests that
he had to deal with for a while. There were some unflattering nicknames associated with an embarrassing shoplifting incident years ago.
Shoplifting at a CVS, I think it was 1990. Condoms, and then a DUI arrest in 2012 that was dropped after he admitted to refusing a breathalyzer. And then his legislative record, as you said, it depends who you talk to. I don't think progressives, would be thrilled, especially nowadays. And earlier, he called himself a moderate Democrat. I think some progressives would say more conservative, as you said, on guns, on abortion rights, voted against gay marriage back in 2010, but kind of pivoted a little bit in more recent years. Rhode Island codified abortion rights, and that got through the Senate in 2019. And even this year, he signaled a more willing, and there were gun control measures that passed the Senate last year, and he had expressed a more willingness this year when it came to an assault weapons ban.
I think, look, I don't think anybody likes nicknames that follow you, but I think he made peace with it, because I read an earlier interview not that long ago where somebody was being spoken about being called names, and he said, "I've been called worse." Right. So I think
if you've been in politics, especially for 40 years, that's probably going to happen. As you said, Bill Rapley's story 8 years ago said he was the longest serving lawmaker then. And
right?
8 years later still was.
So say what you want. In the end, he's there for 40 years, and he held on to it, and he went out on his own terms. He did, although he might have been pressured, and some people aren't happy that he hung on that long with
my
ill
understanding
health.
was, even recently, he said he wasn't going to resign.
Wasn't going to leave. I had Speaker Shekarchi on the radio right away following news of the death. Also, Mayor Lombardi. He's from North Providence. Mayor Lombardi was a good friend. He wanted to speak about him, too. Mayor Lombardi.
He was a friend, not a political friend, but more of a friend. Comes from a great family, good business sense. His family had great business sense, and I think that's why we got along so good. There wasn't one issue, as you know, Gene, we have a legislative charter, so many issues that had to be changed in our ordinances in town had to go before the Senate and the House, but through Donnie's leadership, I don't know what else to say, but thank you very, very much for your services, Donnie, and we love you.
No, kind words, really, the whole week for the late Senate President. Unfinished business. Housing is unfinished. He wanted a medical school at URI. There's the truck tolls to deal with. What else is on your list?
Yeah, and again, one of his big issues was health care and making it more affordable, and there was always work to be done with that. As you said, the housing is a big issue, and the assault weapons ban was going to come up again this year, and I think he could have potentially been instrumental in that one way or another.
He was also, listen, he wanted to be involved in education. I remember saying, I want to see what they're doing with the Providence schools. He spoke about the homeless the last time he was on 10 News Conference. At the beginning of the year, he also spoke about truck tolls, Providence schools, Washington Bridge, and a whole host of other topics. This is an edited version of my interview with the Senate President last time he was on 10 News Conference. Truck tolls. The state prevailed, won the case. You can turn those gantries on. Are you inclined to do that, Mr. President? Turn the truck tolls back on?
Absolutely. I figured we had a 50-50 chance of winning in that case. Obviously, we did prevail. I think it's something that we should have had a long time ago. Because trucks are the ones that do the most damage on the road.
Now, you've got to figure out how to not favor local truckers, because that's what the judge said. You can turn them on, but you've got to charge every truck the same. What is your thinking? How do you get through this part so you can turn them on? How are you going to give the Rhode Island truckers a reasonable passage, yet still get what you need from the out-of-state? Do you have the formula for me today? Do you know what to do?
Well, I think that's where we are, right? We have to figure out
how we can move forward with truck tolls, and it's constitutional. That's our charge now.
But have you figured it out yet? Because job lot doesn't want to get whacked. They have trucks running all around. I know the last deal favored Rhode Island truckers. They gave them a break, but the new deal can't. Have you figured out how to do this?
There are a number of ways. I think we can affect their registration, give them a break on the registration, and do something like that, Gene, so we can give local trucks a break.
Mayor Smiley the other day says he wants the schools back. Wants the schools back from state control. Are you inclined to do that? It's the governor running the show, but you had a lot to say about that. You've always spoken about your concern about education. Are you ready to give the Providence schools back to the city to run?
I don't know the situation at this point in time. I know they want the schools back, but do they have the money to finance that? Yeah. I think we need deeper discussions with the mayor of Providence in order to make that determination.
Yeah, and I think those conversations are happening, and I know that there's going to be a report released on that. And the city has to be ready for the takeover. The people, the teachers and the school department have to be ready as well. And it has to be in the best interest for students and educators. And we just have to make sure when that happens, that should occur, because it's probably the best practice for a district to have their own control.
With regard to the Washington Bridge, are you satisfied with the way that's progressing under the DOT and the governor's stewardship? Are you satisfied with the way it's going? They have a goal. They've got 2 contractors competing. We'll know this summer, and then we start reconstruction.
So I think that's been a source of frustration, especially for me as the senator from East Providence. I'm on that bridge every single day. I think we have to do better. We have to, we still have to have oversight hearings and find out what happened. Our focus now, we need to rebuild that bridge. We need to do it right. And it's just a quality of life issue, so we have to make sure we get it done right and figure out what happened and never prevent it again. I know you're not happy with what happened, but are you satisfied at least with the state trying to fix it and the timetable they've laid out and what's going on right now?
Am I satisfied? I think they have to rebuild the other side that they're rebuilding now. But I'm relatively satisfied that they have contractors that are going to be working on that project. Yeah. But obviously, I'm not satisfied with what happened with that bridge. I mean, that bridge is, I think, 60 years old or something.
Let's talk about as a bid to pass an assault weapons ban, and I was reading that you may be softening on this. Could you make that clear for me? Where do you stand on this? On the governor's pushing this, an assault weapons ban, and this always gets people arguing over definition of assault weapons and this and that. But you know what we're talking about. Are you softening on that, Senate President?
Well, obviously, it's like anything else, Gene. Legislation submitted, we'll hear it, and we'll see what the testimony is, and we'll make a determination after that. So. I haven't made up my mind, but I'm not, I'm not really adamantly opposed to anything right now. I mean, we've done a lot with guns as far as safe storage and red flag issues and ghost guns and a number of issues like that. And we're going to see if that's adequate, and if it's not, we'll address the situation. But I don't want to reach out and say, here's what we're going to do, because I don't know that's what we're going to do at this point in time.
Number one priority, Senator Lawson. Number one.
Well, I think probably the Senate's number one priority is health care and reviewing the primary care reimbursement rates, and like I had said earlier, extending that. Even looking at pediatricians, we're in a healthcare crisis. And as you mentioned earlier, the housing situation is another area of importance to us.
All right, Senator, I'll give you the last word, Senate President Ruggerio. Your number one priority when you go back?
Number one priority is examine the feasibility of creating a place at URI to address the healthcare crisis as far as you know, the pediatricians, doctors of that nature. So that's what we're looking at, and URI, I think, is the perfect place for it, and that's where we are right now.
Medical school at URI, that would be a heavy lift for anybody, even the Senate president. Millions of dollars, takes years to plan. But we'll see if that might come to fruition as his legacy. By the way, the unions lost a friend. He came out of the laborers' union. They lost a friend, but Val Lawson is also a friend of the unions.
Right, and that, as you saw in that interview there, that was Val Lawson, who was sitting next to Ruggerio, and she would be the one potentially to pick up the torch at this point. Probably a little bit more progressive than Ruggerio, but there's concerns from the progressives about who she is now teamed up with to be her number 2, Frank Chacon, again with concerns over gun control, abortion access, equality issues. So it'll be interesting to see how much that comes out in terms of people fighting that ticket, so to speak.
There's also going to be good government concerns if she tries to hold on to the presidency of the teachers union.
Yeah, she's the head of the NEARI.
That's very controversial. Yeah. She's the head of NEARI. Some people say the unions have too much influence up there. Now we're going to put that president as the president of the Senate.
And if you go back to Bill Rapley's piece about Dominick Ruggerio, when he became the Senate president, I think Bill in that piece left it as Ruggerio was thinking about leaving the union. He did as a result of that. So there's a lot of moving pieces here as to what could happen next. But all that's expected to play out after the funeral.
For the weekend, I think we'll have more kind words. The funeral is this weekend, and that's the legacy of the late State Senate President Dominick Ruggerio. Brian, thanks.